My next guest is an undefeated welterweight contender, and he trains out of Gracie Barra in Jacksonville, Florida. And he joins me right now ahead of his upcoming fight at Combat Night 166. Korey Taylor joins me right now. Korey, welcome to the show, man. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, brother.
2-0 so far. You put both of your opponents away in the very first round. Tell me a little bit about just your fighting style and your approach to fighting.
Yeah, man. I don't like to fight for 3 rounds. Like one of my training partners, Preston Parsons, I love going forward. I'm not a big guy on, taking a bunch of steps backwards. So I love bringing pressure forward. I think one thing that I've really kind of worked on since, having a lot of early success was just learning to be more patient and kind of letting them make the mistakes and let things unfold for me instead of forcing things. But my fight style is very aggressive. It's very aggressive. Like I said, I love going forward, whether it's in striking or striking to instigate any kind of grappling exchange. I love to grapple. Obviously, I come from a jiu-jitsu academy. My head coach is a very, very well-rounded coach for MMA, but his wrestling and jiu-jitsu, the way he puts them together is unreal. So I get a lot of that from him.
So I've done my homework on you, and like digging back into the past, every single time that you've won a fight, you've like figured out a way to like put away your opponent, going back to your amateur days. That's what's really unique about you in particular. And so I always ask this question when I see somebody rip off wins and they're just getting finishes every single time that they go out, like we almost get spoiled, right? Because it's like, oh, well, how is he going to put this guy away? And, how is he going to find the submission? How is he going to find the knockout? But the bar gets raised every single time you make that walk. Do you feel that pressure when you go into all your fights? Like, I got to put this guy away. I got to put this guy away.
Absolutely not. Looking back into my amateur career, I had very good matchups. I had very good coaching, very good teammates, and I had very good camps. I never was the guy. Well, I say I never was. Probably my first 3 fights, almost like any amateur fighter, what's your prediction? Knockout, you know what I mean? Which ended up not happening. I actually didn't get my first knockout, I think, until my 5th fight as an amateur. But I kept winning by submission or, TKO from strikes from the top position, So it took me a little while to kind of pick up on, my style, but I'm willing to take the fight wherever it needs to go, however long it needs to go. But again, preferably as quickly as I can. I learned a long, long time ago when I first started training under Professor Roberto Quintero, was the coach I was talking about just a second ago. Going to regular tournaments with him for jiu-jitsu and different stuff like that. He would always kind of like drill into my head, who do you think is more tired? The dude that goes out and gets all the finishes real quick, or the dude that was cool with point fighting? I was very impressionable at that time. I think I was 21. So I was like, yeah, I got to do what he says. I got to do what he says. So my whole mindset has always been go forward, go forward, go forward. Let's get this thing done. Let's get it wrapped up. Let's get out of here. Let's have a beer. I had one loss to one of my now probably very good friends, Mikey Conlon. He's a beast. He's making his pro debut actually this Saturday in Orlando. So I'm going down there to support him. We've been great friends, great training partners since our fight. It's the only loss I ever had, and it went the distance. Damn him. So no, man, great fight and between me and him. But after that, I definitely changed my mindset. If that dude made it out of the first round, I lost that round. So going into the second, like I have to kill him now. That's always been kind of my mindset. So that's kind of just what I do now.
There's something to be said for that though, right? Because I do feel like sometimes, right, you have those fighters that in retrospect, they look back and they're like, what, I may have left something to chance. And with MMA judging kind of being heavily critiqued, you always hear fighters say something like, what, it was my fault. I shouldn't have let it go to the decision. I should have done something different. And I kind of wanted to ask you about that. And maybe you kind of already answered that question, but with MMA judging kind of being a question mark, does that influence you even more sometimes? Like, you know what, like I'm removing them from the equation. I have to.
Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, it just depends on what type of judge you have, what they prefer. You know, you could have a judge that really likes to watch people stand and bang, right? You could have a judge that really loves to watch people, wrestle or, grapple the entire time and just be dominant on the ground and just ground and pound, right? So, yeah, I've seen fights where a dude got taken down like 6-7 times in amateurs. So there's 3-minute rounds. Got taken down. I think I had a buddy take a dude down like 9 times, 3 takedowns in a round, and be dominant on top. But he lost, and the judges actually explained themselves and said, well, he got rocked when he shot in, which didn't make sense to me. But again, if those judges were the ones that I want to see someone get knocked out, they're not super fans of grappling. So yeah, for sure. I don't like leaving it to judges because that's all a matter of opinion to me.
I wanted to shift gears a little bit, and we've talked about before the recording and then a little bit during, we've talked about some of the people that you're getting work in with. Preston Parsons, he's a really exciting UFC fighter. And then there's Jakub Kaszuba. That guy is an absolute tank who just won his fight at PFL Europe. He'll be moving on into the finals. You guys are roughly the same size. And I wanted to ask you, that guy has a perfect record. He does a lot of things really well. Can you tell me a little bit, number one, what makes him a special fighter? And then number two, how do you benefit from that day in and day out?
Well, with Kuba, man, to be frank, that dude is a robot. All right. I've known Kuba for 4 or 5 years now. Kuba is the kind of guy that will go in the gym when no one wants to train or when nobody's there. And he will go in the corner and set up circuit training for himself with dummies. And I've literally never witnessed anybody train as hard as Kuba by themselves without a coach. It's insane. So he's one of those dudes that's I don't really need you there. I want you there. I could use the help, but if you can't provide it, that's fine. I'll do it myself. He is an animal. We are roughly the same size, a little bit bigger than me, but man, his cardio is unreal. His strength is unreal. His technique is unreal. Everything about Kuba is almost not human. I benefit from that greatly. Kuba is also a great training partner, man. There is not a time I can think of that I asked him if he could come help me, train for a fight or just help me come train in general. I'm actually in my garage right now, and I have mats set up here, what my garage is. And when he would be in fights or when I would be in fights, when COVID shut down and we were, trying to stay ready for fights, he would literally come over to my house every day and we would train in my garage just to stay active. He would train, I would get my ass kicked. But it was great training. It was a great time. I benefit from it hugely. I've learned a lot of things from him. Matter of fact, Kuba's cornered me in 1 or 2 of my fights. But not just me, man. He's great. He'll train with anybody. He's never says no. He never has some kind of excuse as to why he can or why he doesn't want to. And I think anybody that is in the same room as Kuba benefits greatly.
There's a high probability that he will end up in the PFL regular season in 2024. What type of guy do you think PFL's bringing somebody like him into the fold?
They're getting the best. They are getting the best of the best. I'm telling you, I like to travel as much as I can and train at different gyms. I'm not a world traveler. I was in the Army for a little while and traveled around like that, but nothing for martial arts. But I will say the bit that I have traveled around, I have gotten the chance to travel out to the headquarters for Gracie Barra out in Irvine, and they have Neiman Gracie and Marvin Vittori and Juan Archuleta and all those killers out there, and Professor Felipe de la Monica, just animals. And even still, Kuba is one of the top elite guys that I've probably ever trained with.
I think he's one of the best kept secrets in MMA. I want to bring it closer to you now. You're 29 years old. You already mentioned that you're an Army vet. So, hey, appreciate everything that you did. Tell me a little bit about your background in mixed martial arts and just kind of how you came to be. You've dropped a few hints here along the way, but for people who aren't following the breadcrumb trail, how did we get to this point?
Man, I started it's funny you talked about Randy Couture being on this podcast a while back. When I was really young and UFC started, really taking I started taking an interest in UFC. Matt Hughes and Randy Couture are my 2 favorite fighters by far. And it was something that me and my dad really bonded over. My dad always wanted me to grow up and be, rough and tough, and was very pressured on me about being a man's man and stuff like that. I started training really young when I was about 11 or 12. with a guy named Chris Kostad, who unknowingly actually started out with my current coach that I have now. From there, I trained up until, I joined the Army when I was like 17, got out. Right when I got out of the Army, unfortunately, my dad passed away, and I didn't really have an outlet anymore. So a week later, I walked back in the gym. I started training at a new gym, the one that I'm still at right now, which is Gracie Barra, Jacksonville. It slowly kind of turned into just a hobby, and then a habit, and then like essential living. You know what I mean? I didn't want to stop. And one day the head instructor walked up and he asked me if I could help out in another guy's camp. And I was like, sure. And I went over there and I helped him train. And then we did it a couple more times, different camps and stuff like that. And he told me one day, he said, man, I love watching you in there. And I said, why? And he said, they throw the kitchen sink at you and you don't even flinch. And I said, so should I fight? And he goes, you should probably learn how to throw the kitchen sink back. And I was like, okay, that's fair. So we just really started kind of working from there. And about 2 years into me training there, he got me my first amateur fight. I just kind of went from there and I never stopped. So I'll be completely honest. It was a pipe dream. You know what I mean? Like, I played UFC video games as a kid. I never, ever thought that I would be a professional MMA fighter. But I love it. I love every bit of it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. So
I always ask guys, like, I don't think you really know if you're about it or not until you've actually like done that walk a few different times. Like, they say getting punched in the face is an acquired taste. And in your case, at what point does like that light bulb switch off and you're just like, you know what? Like, not only do I want to keep going, but like, I want to like move up to the professional ranks. At what point did you just kind of make up your mind that this was something that you wanted to pursue at the next level?
I'd say probably my fourth fight. My fourth fight is when I realized that I was actually good at this. My first fight, that dude beat my ass. I ended up pulling out like a TKO the last 10 seconds because he just got tired, probably of beating my ass. First punch broke my nose. I broke my foot throwing the first kick. The coach walked in the cage and I just looked at him. I just won, by the way. My hands are up on the cage and I'm breathing, trying to. He walks in the cage and I looked at him and I'm like, I am so sorry. I just embarrassed us. And he's like, a win's a win, I guess. I went back to the gym and I was like, I'm never going to fight again. He's probably super disappointed. I walked in probably a week after my fight because I took a week off, and he looks at me and goes, so you're going to be ready for in 2 months? And I was like, oh, are you asking me? And he's like, not really. I was like, okay. So, I fought again and I was like, well, that was way better. That one went way better. And then I fought again and went even better. And it started to seem like the more and more I fought, one, the faster I was getting finishes, two, the less damage I was taking, and three, the more confidence I gained. And again, I truly believe that came with the coaching that I had. Like, a lot of guys would be like, no, I want to fight the toughest dude that they have. I want the belt. I want McGregor tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
I was never really that guy. I was completely okay with taking what they gave me. And I always trusted that my coach kind of had a plan for me, and he did. And it got me to where I'm at now. So I'm super grateful for that. But yeah, I'd say probably around my fourth fight, kind of circling back to that. I realized I was like, man, I think I can go forward with this. And my fifth fight is the one that I lost. So I was like, well, I suck. That's it. I suck now. I ended up having to take like a year and a half off from that because I had a really, really bad concussion right after that training. And I was dumb. I didn't take care of it the way I needed to. So it kept getting worse and kept getting worse to the point to where I had to force myself to stop for a while. I came back and got my first knockout, which actually coincidentally ended up being my first highlight reel. Some dude said some not nice things to me. So middle of the fight, I just open hand slapped him. And I got some kind of reputation off of that, which whatever. And then right after that, I knocked him out, but it was like a delayed knockout. So I hit him, took a step back, and then he kind of took a couple steps back and kind of faded out. And after that, I was like, oh man, maybe I don't suck. So yeah. Then after that, I never wanted to be the guy that wanted to ask my coach, like, hey, can I go pro? Can I go pro? I'm ready to go pro. I didn't want to be a stepping stone guy. I didn't want to be some scrub. You know what I mean? I wanted to be a dude that when I went pro, I was just as good as the other pros. So I had one more fight after that, and I was standing in a store with my coach one day, and he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, congrats, by the way." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "Oh, you're going to be a pro on this day." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
So from maybe a very humble start into MMA, broken bones aside, and dropping one fight, but ending up finding your way and cresting along. Sounds like you've kind of disclosed a few things like that I think a lot of people go through when they first start in MMA. It's like, am I an imposter, or am I ready to fight Conor McGregor? And like this like roller coaster of emotions that probably goes through your brain. I think that's completely normal for everybody who's a competitor. But like, what were one of the bigger lessons that you learned about yourself during that kind of tumultuous time when you're still trying to like figure out your way in this sport that you would maybe pass on to somebody new that might just be getting ready to begin their amateur career?
Timing is everything. Timing is everything. You can't rush stuff. Aside from me, fighting, I also coach full time at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy. I do the striking, and I teach a lot of the Jiu-Jitsu classes as well. So I have a lot of guys that walk up and they're like, "Hey, I'm really, really interested in fighting. I really want to fight. I really want to fight. I really want to fight." And I always give them the same answer: man, focus on training. Enjoy the journey. Don't be the guy that's like, "I want to fight. I want to fight." And your coaches say, "You should probably wait. You should keep training." And you're like, "No, I'm going to fight." That doesn't usually end very well for those guys. It goes one of two ways. They get their ass kicked and they never do it again, and you never hear from them again. Or they get their ass kicked and they're like, but I'm a fighter now. So they just keep doing it, and they end up with 0-20 records.
Right. Hey, I think you're sharing some wisdom here. And if you're a young buck out there, I hope you're taking heed to some of what Korey had just talked about. When I think like big picture with you, 29 years old, you're in your athletic prime right now. Now, there are a lot of idiots and shitheads maybe in the media, people like me, that would say, this guy's too old to really like make a serious run at this. But there's a counterpoint to that. And Dana White's he's still signing people in their early 30s. In fact, Connor Matthews is 31 or 32. He was on
32.
he was on Dana White Contender Series a couple weeks back, and he did a phenomenal job. He doesn't have very many more fights than you, and he impressed the boss, and he gets his shot at the UFC. So my question for you is, do people in the media make a much bigger deal about being 29, 30 years old than what they ought to?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. It's kind of cliche, but age is just a number, really. There's ups and downs to it, right? I started training at a really young age, but like we talked about before, I don't really have a lot of damage to me. Obviously, the aches and the pains that come with it, the constant training, and every now and then the dumb injuries that you get. But I'm fresh. 29. I just turned 29. I think we should clarify that. I'm a new 29. All right. But yeah, some guys, man, like if you look at guys like Charles Oliveira, right? How long was he in the UFC before he got his shot? Again, it's all about timing, and I don't think it matters really what your age is, unless you're 42 and you're just now starting.
That might be a little different. There's also a flip side to it. And it's getting into the show before you're ready. If you get in there too young, there are time and time again, we see a lot of cautionary stories out there where it's like you're 22 years old and you think you're ready for the show. And it's like, man, by the time you're 27, 28 years old, the game's done with you already.
Yeah, I forget his name, but so another one of my training partners that I've known him since I was 21. Ramon Tavares, he just got signed on the Contender Series this past week. And congrats to him, man. He's definitely deserved it. He's been grinding for forever, since before I even knew him. So definitely well deserved. But there was another younger guy on there, huge guy. But I can't remember his name. But he's like 24 years old, and he was 2-0. And he won his fight, I believe, by rear naked choke, I believe. And And, exactly what you just said is what Dana said. He felt like he'd be doing him a disservice because he's so young and his record is so new. Granted, I'm also 2-0, but I'm about 5-6 years older than him. So I don't have as much time as him. But yeah, no, I agree completely. You don't want to start too early because, again, between, 27, 28 to 32 is supposed to be prime, ideally. So you don't want to, I agree. Yeah. If you start at like 22 to 24 and you're in the UFC, you could be kind of burnt out by then. I see it happen, all the time to guys that start really, really young. And then before they're even 30, they're like, man, I don't want to do this shit no more. Tired of getting punched in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Edmund Shabazian is the guy I always think of. Like, that's my cautionary tale. That guy had so much hype. He made it into the show. He's still really young. He's 27, 28 years old. And look at some of the people that he's fought before he was probably ready to fight them. And, he may not even be at this level much longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I agree. And I think that's huge too, is just the different types of matchups. I have a lot of buddies who fought guys that, again, the timing was not good for them.
Yeah.
They're fighting grown men that are in their prime and they just turned 20. They have no business fighting those guys. Those are killers that are going to kill your career before it even gets started.
Well, let's talk about who you're going to be fighting next. Combat Night 166. That's going to be happening very shortly. Can you tell me a little bit, like, as I alluded to earlier, this is going to be your third fight of 2023. So how are we feeling right now, and who are you going to be fighting here in a few weeks?
Man, I feel great. I feel really good. This camp's been really good to me. This is the last one for the year, obviously. But yeah, this is a rematch. Yeah, not against Mikey. He's scared. I said it. You're scared, Mikey. No. No. This is a rematch against my last amateur fight, a guy named Kevin Harrison. Super solid fighter. He's solid everywhere. He's got good stand-up. He's taller than me. He's like 6'1", 6'2". I believe he's a first-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, if I'm not mistaken. Very talented guy. I fought him. He came off of a big layoff, and I ended up getting it done in the second round with a TKO. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight. He was, aside from Mikey, I would definitely say he was probably the best dude I fought. So I'm excited about this one.
Did his name, Korey, come out of left field, or like even after?
It really did. It really did. I wasn't expecting that. I fought twice since we fought. He hasn't fought again. Coming off a big layoff before we fought, and then the way our fight ended, I didn't think I would be his first, his pro debut. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm not really a no kind of guy. They threw me his name, and honestly, when they said it, I was like, damn, that name sounds really familiar. And they're like, yeah, you fought him before. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, again? And so it is what it is. I guess so.
So for you, can you talk a little bit about like your evolution as a fighter since the last time you shared the cage with him? Like, what's the biggest, without giving away state secrets, of course, like, can you tell me a little bit, like, more fundamentally, how has your game evolved since the last time you were in there with him?
Patience. Yeah. If you watch our last fight, and it's actually on my Instagram, there was no such a thing as head movement. There was no feints. There was literally, I'm going to walk forward. I don't care if you hit me. I'm going to hit you back harder once I get close to you. Let's get in close. He was, like I said, he was tall. Even though I knew he was a decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And that is my main go-to. I love jiu-jitsu. So I'm not, downplaying his by any means, but I wasn't necessarily super worried.
Is it a bit of a risk, like taking on this guy for the second time? I mean, you put him away the first time, and going into it for a second go around, like for me, I'm trying to like figure out, if I were you, like, okay, well, what exactly do I benefit from it? Because it seems like a little bit of a risk.
I've thought about that, actually. I have. That's something I really thought about. Yes and no. He caught me with a couple really good shots in the first round that we fought. And it may sound petty, and I'm not a perfectionist, but I swear to you, they said his name, and the only thing I could think of was like, he ain't gonna hit me like he hit me last time. He will not catch me. And all I've worked on like is just, you know, shutting that down, shutting his offense down. Obviously, yeah, there is a little bit of risk in the sense that this is his pro debut. He literally has nothing to lose, because if he loses to me again, well, you lost to a dude that's already beat you. You know what I mean? If I lose to him, then what? To that I say, that's the game. Good job. You were better than me that day. But I don't foresee that happening.
Well, it's a big night, Combat Night 166, and it's also in Jacksonville as well. So I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people that are going to be coming out for this fight. And, you know, fight night, or the night of the fight and then the build up to the fight, you got a million things going on, and you're not always able to talk to all your supporters and talk to all the people that are going to be showing out. So for people that are watching this and we're closer to fight night, like, what do you want them to know headed into this fight against a tough guy?
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate all of them, all my supporters. It truly is amazing, right? Having that a fan base. It's not something I thought I'd ever really have. So thank you for that. And, thank you to all my sponsors for supporting me. I got guys at PE, Travis, Adam, LJ that you know, they keep me in shape in and out of camp. They're amazing. All my other sponsors, you know, whether they sponsor me with gear or financially or anything like that, you know, they're awesome. I couldn't do it without them.
Excellent. Well, Korey, I want to give you the final word. If there's anything on your mind or any message that you have for anybody, let's knock it out.
Well, again, I just want to say how grateful I am. Thank you so much. Gracie Barra Jacksonville, wouldn't be here without you. Professor Roberto, wouldn't be here without you. Thank you to all my teammates, Preston Parsons, Kuba, Ramon Tavares, Steven Kozlow, Trey Waters, all these guys. You know, they're great UFC fighters, but, you know, I consider them good friends of mine. They help me with my training. All my other partners, Walter Salea, Lesnar, Michael Tovar, you guys are great. You guys are awesome. I wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to my family. Thank you to my wife, my kids. Thank you for putting up with me. I know I can be an asshole when I'm doing this stuff. So you guys are great. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you catch Korey's next fight. That happens on November 4th at Combat Night 166 in Jacksonville, Florida. I hope you bought your tickets, because by the time I edit this and put it out, maybe there aren't any other tickets. But I hope you took care of that before you see this. Korey, thanks for showing up. I look forward to having you back very soon, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you.